Welcome and thanks for joining me on this flight over historic RAF Fighter Command airfields used during the World War II Battle of Britain in 1940. Fighter Command was divided into several groups covering the whole of the UK. We will look at key airfields in the main group which took the brunt of the battle, that is Group 11 covering London and the area all the way to the coast east and south of London. We will start at Gatwick and end at Northolt, overflying Red Hill, Biggin Hill, Kenley, Croydon and Heathrow on the way. We will see how they look today, but of course at the time of the battle they were full of fighter aircraft, mainly Hurricanes and Spitfires. What better way to conduct this tour than in a Spitfire? Gatwick opened in the late 1920s. RAF Gatwick during the Battle of Britain operated as an emergency airfield for RAF Kenley, which was a key sector airfield. Today it is EGKK Gatwick or London Gatwick. There is nothing to see from Battle of Britain days except for the former beehive shaped terminal building which has been retained. Red Hill is coming up next. It opened before World War II in the 1930s for private flying. RAF Red Hill during the Battle of Britain was an emergency satellite airfield for Kenley. Today it is EGKR Red Hill, used for private flying and training. There is little left from the Battle of Britain days, but the runways and outline of the old airfield can still be clearly seen. Before heading off to Biggin Hill, we will overfly the house of a man who was a neighbour of and frequent visitor to Biggin Hill Airport. This is Chartwell, Winston Churchill's home. Chartwell is coming up now just in front of the aircraft. You can just see it, the lake just under the aircraft and to the right. And now off to Biggin Hill. Biggin Hill, how I love this airport. It was opened for the Royal Flying Corps during World War I. RAF Biggin Hill was a key sector airfield during the Battle of Britain and accounted for the most German aircraft destroyed, and it was also the most attacked airfield. It is now EGKB Biggin Hill, or London Biggin Hill, a busy general aviation airport. Several Battle of Britain era buildings and hangars remain, giving a great feel of what it was like during the battle, and there is a great RAF chapel and new museum to visit. I visited Biggin Hill once with my family and we were all deeply moved by the displays in the chapel. A Spitfire and Hurricane heritage hangar is also located at Biggin Hill. Approaching Biggin Hill now, the Hurricane and Spitfire heritage hangar is just to the right of the nose of the aircraft, and the famous RAF chapel and new museum is just about under the nose of the aircraft now. Kenley coming up next. Kenley was opened by the Royal Flying Corps towards the end of World War I. RAF Kenley was another key sector airfield during the Battle of Britain. Although it is now EGKN Kenley, used only for gliding operations, it is still Ministry of Defence land, and it is considered the most complete RAF fighter airfield to survive from the Battle of Britain, despite the fact that the old control tower and buildings have gone. Its runways are still in their original configurations, and the locations of most of the fighter aircraft anti-blast pens can still be seen scattered around the airfield. There is also a nice memorial to visit. Croydon Airport coming up next. Croydon opened in the 1920s and was the UK's major and only international civil aviation airport during the wars. RAF Croydon was a satellite airfield for Kenley during the Battle of Britain. Amazingly, the airport is no more, and there is nothing to see from the Battle of Britain. But the historic world's first control tower and terminal building have been retained and contain a nice aviation museum. Bits of the old tarmac can also still be seen. And there it is on the right hand side of the aircraft, those open fields and that mass of white buildings. You can see a white circle just disappearing under the aircraft. That's some of the old tarmac still remaining. And about where the nose of the aircraft is now is where the original old control tower and terminal building are located. Coming up to Heathrow, or EGLL London Heathrow, opened in 1929 as a civil airport. RAF Fighter Command used the airport during the Battle of Britain, but only for diversions. There's nothing to see at Heathrow from the Battle of Britain days. Last but certainly not least is Northolt, opened for the Royal Flying Corps during World War I in 1915. RAF Northolt was another key sector airfield during the Battle of Britain. It is currently still RAF Northolt, the only one of the 27 airfields in Fighter Command Group 11 to still be a RAF airfield. Nothing much, however, remains from the Battle of Britain, except perhaps for the airport layout. Now let's see if we can land this tricky spit. Wheels down. Still flying downwind, turning base. Flaps down. And turning final. Looking for about 100 knots over the fence. Quite tricky to land. Hold it very straight when touching down, very active on the rudder. just wait for it to settle and slow down and virtually stop by itself. Bit of a bounce, fairly typical with a spit. Flaps up. And we'll pull off on the grass early to shut down so as not to prolong this. And thanks for joining me on this flight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like more like this, please let me know. Cheers.